Are we live? We are live. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Good evening. So nice to be here. Although super comfy pants, maybe a touch tight for sitting cross-legged. Let me just adjust my pants. Okay. Oh, I'm excited to talk to you all today. Let's begin, as we always do, by practicing orientation to awareness. So just in your own way, shape, and form, becoming intimate with breath. Almost as if you are drinking in the breath. Just notice as I started to change cushions that I held my breath. I was like, oh, okay. Right, and this is part of the trick, is to become so intimate with breath. And it like breath is like this, it's like inhaling a lover and then offering a lover. Like, and what I notice in this intimacy with breath, it's better, is that as I drop into it, and there's awareness of felt sense of breath in nostrils. Now, these are the cues I often give. And there's awareness of the felt sense of the breath down into the body. And I notice where I feel it, where I don't feel it. But the essence of it is the sense of immersing in the breath, becoming intimate with the breath. And then what I notice is the breath itself begins to take over. So I'm no longer in control as such, the breath is. And as you are becoming intimate with your breath, the body might still be settling itself. It might be stretching out. Stillness might be arising. Noticing that there is tension or blockage in the upper heart, shoulders, back there. So I'm just like, as I'm breathing now, what I'm noticing is the breath is kind of coming in like a balloon underneath and expanding into that place where it feels a little dense, right? So just allowing intimacy with breath, allowing movement of the body, being really curious about whatever's unfolding as you fully arrive in this space. And as this is unfolding, there'll be thoughts arising. There might be feelings present. Just being with it all. And as this becomes established, right, awareness of breath, intimacy with breath, let it expand into awareness of the whole body awareness. And once that's established, awareness, intimacy with breath, awareness, intimacy with body. Then there's expanding awareness into containing the room, right? So there's awareness, intimacy with the space you're in. And then from that establishment, this is just a base meditation, right? This is the fundamental, and it has different variations, 4-pointed awareness. I often do this one, which is kind of 3 points: breath, body, the space, the room. And then once that's established, it's like, oh, then I often bring in the actual technique, right? This is just establishment. So this morning, let's work with the golden column meditation, right? So you're in established an awareness of breath, awareness of body, awareness of the space, and then really tune into the spine. Right? Feel your physical spine from the tailbone all the way up to the crown of the head. Really feel that spine. And then you may even want to feel into the Devadashanta, that point that is 12 finger widths above the head, so you can't see it, but it's up there. It's up there. Right, so as you feel into the spine, you can go all the way up and then start to sense into a golden column that runs inside the spine, right? Just in front of this. So when I say inside, I mean just in front of, not in the center of the spine, but just in front of the spine, in the center of the body. This is Sushumna, right? The major nadi. So this is center, one of the ways of orientating to center. So feeling into Sushumna and sensing, imagining, visualizing, exploring it as a golden column. And just trusting what shows up for you. You might see golden light, it might be sparkly, it might be flat light, it might be different shades of golden, it might be a flame, whatever, right? It might not even be a column, you might just have a flame somewhere, but just be curious, let it be what it is, really feel into that, establish that, right? So we've established awareness of breath, body, room. Now we're establishing orientation to the spine and then the golden column in front of the spine. Feel that. Your hands can be in a mudra. You might be here, might be in Anjali mudra, maybe in Chin mudra, could be in Ganesh mudra, Yoni mudra, whatever, right? Just trust. Maybe your hands are moving, right? Maybe your hands are moving. And then once that golden column is established, any thoughts that arise, any feelings, any sensations, imagine that this golden column has a gravitational pull. It is the very center of the universe, and any phenomena that you become aware of is into the golden column, where it evaporates or sizzles or burns up or lasers or whatever, right? But it's just returns to that. And so now, as you're sitting there with this establishment of this golden column, just allow thoughts, feelings, sensations to be drawn in over and over again. So you are centered in the column, centered in your body, centered in the universe. Everything is drawn into that. The mind wanders. And what to find that? If attention goes into thought and identifies with it and is caught on a thought train, as soon as you notice, oh, the remembering, come back to the golden column. And that might happen quite a few times, where that which you are gets caught by a thought, identifies, and heads off on a thought train. Then you realize, come back. Right? And eventually what will unfold is that there's an ability to rest there, and a thought arises, it gets drawn in. There's no, I'm identified with the thought, thinking the thought, that starts to fade away. And instead, this is where that which you are resides. Thought arises, drawn in. Thought arises, drawn in. Thought arises, drawn in. Let's just sit with that in silence for a minute or two. I might start to get kind of peaceful. Not many thoughts, not many feelings, just basking. It's basking in the golden column. So you're welcome to bask. Okay. Well, there might still be things coming up, and you just keep. Final piece of this practice is that once you've got established golden column, then if you wish, you can explore with calling up, contemplating, bringing to mind a challenging situation that is generating discomfort, anxiety, difficult thoughts, and bring the situation to mind, and then allow any thought, feelings, sensations triggered by your contemplation of the situation to be drawn into the golden column. And of course, you can stay in that in your own practice as long as you wish, until the situation feels clean and clear, until the situation is no longer generating specific thoughts or feelings, because you have burned through potentially what was underlying it: vikalpas, thoughts, constructs, beliefs, samskaras, unresolved trauma, etc., conditioning. So feel free to continue to work with the golden column, even as I speak to it a little. So just breaking down the practice, because I want you to practice by yourself. And I want you to practice not because you're doing it by rote or trying to remember the thing, but because you understand the mechanism of practice itself. And through understanding the mechanism of practice, you can skillfully work with practice. In essence, it's a means to an end in some ways, but the paradox is that one also needs to simply practice for practice's sake. So golden column, first, establishment and orientation to awareness, right? Awareness of breath, awareness of body, awareness of space. This is that supporting that shift of identification from the apparent separate sense of self to awareness. And this in and of itself is, I mean, it's a fundamental key practice, and it takes a lot of practice. And this is the beginning of awakening, right? The first goal of Tantra is to awaken, which really is it's a shift in identification, right? No longer identified with a separate sense of self, identified with simply that which is awareness, just awareness. So we begin the practice with orientation to awareness, establishing that baseline. Pretty much any practice you're doing starts that way. And you might do it, for me, when I sit down, it's like boo, boo, boo. It's 3 breaths to establish that, because I practice it. Some of you may need to do it for 5 minutes. You may need to do 15-minute practices of orientation to awareness until you've trained that shift in identification to just happen with ease. And eventually you don't even have to do it, because you're no longer identified at all with separate sense of self. You're just naturally orientated to awareness. And then I find it handy to feel into the physical spine, right? Because the body can sense and feel the physical spine with more ease. And I also find it handy to feel into Devadashanta, because the golden column does not stop at the crown. The golden column itself kind of pierces through, you could say, the torso, the body, right? Not that it's necessarily a real thing that's there. This is a focal point. This is how we train ourselves. So feel into the spine, feel into the Devadashanta, establish that. And then there's the establishment of the golden column. So they're just focusing on that, aligning to that, feeling that. So that's kind of the second stage of the practice, establishment. And sometimes that'll be all you do in the practice, simply establish, right? And then you're done, right? 1, 2, done. Third part is when you can establish and just like kind of hang out there and be aware of thoughts arising, subsiding, be aware of feelings arising, subsiding. Then the practice is to stay in the golden column and allow that gravitational of the column to just draw in all of the things so they burn up, right? And in that practice, what might happen is, if the intensity is there, etc., is that thoughts, feelings, you'll re-identify with thoughts and feelings and be in that. Then you remember, oh, wait, awareness comes back in, whoa, and then suck it in and down. And that might happen repeatedly. But so you're training yourself to notice where you are, centered in awareness, identified with thoughts or feelings. And as soon as you notice, woo, back into that. So it's a third part of the practice. And you might finish there, right? You might just orientate to awareness, establish golden column, just work with the gravitational pull and staying in center and drawing all the things down. Fourth part of the practice. This is where it starts to really become a beneficial tool, where you've, it's like, okay, let's talk about an axe. If you don't know how to use an axe, you're not going to be able to cut firewood that well. The first thing is to like find out, how do you hold the axe? How do you swing the axe? How do you work with the axe on a piece of wood? And then once you've get a measure of mastery around holding, swinging, and moving the axe, then you begin to practice chopping wood, right? So now the axe has become a tool. In the same or similar way, right? We know how to hold ourselves, orientation to awareness, and then we're going into establishment of the golden column, and then we're working with whatever's present and dissolving it into the golden column. Now we're ready to really use it as a tool. And this is where the warrior aspect comes in, from my perspective, or the ninja aspect, is deliberately choosing problematic, uncomfortable, challenging, conflicting situations, circumstances, people, and putting awareness on them, to, drawing them into your field, and they will trigger thoughts and feelings, right? And so then boom, you just keep allowing those thoughts and feelings to be drawn into the golden column and burned up. And again, you may end up identifying, you start thinking about, oh my God, and she said this, I can't, oh, awareness of thought, draw the thought in, burn the thought up. And this is where the practice has an opportunity, as you work with it, to start to come alive, right? So those are our 4 stages of the golden column practice. Orientation to awareness, establishment of the golden column, working with what is present in the body, and then deliberately calling in challenging situations. And in that, right, when you're deliberately calling in the challenging situations, what you may notice is that things start to spontaneously happen and unfold within the system as you're orientated to awareness, and just allowing that, trusting that. This is the letting go into the practice, like into the process, you could say, of liberation. And liberation is the dissolving of conditioning. Now, initially we feel like this is something we have to do. However, when there is enough of a deep orientation to awareness, and particularly with the use of specific tools, even though we're doing the tool, there's a surrender into just being. And it's that moment and the surrender to just the beingness in the practice, where the practice will suddenly start to do you. Right now, the practice is doing you. And I say you could call that the fifth stage. And you can't make that happen. You can't do that. It's just what unfolds when you give yourself to, when you commit to, when you love, a practice. Like if you took this particular practice, the golden column, and you showed up to it every single day with curiosity and with a desire to understand it from the inside and to feel it and to see what happens, and you did it for 40 days in a row, or 90 days in a row, or 120 days in a row, or 1,000 days in a row, right? You do that practice for 1,000 days in a row, you would master that practice. And the thing about mastering a practice is that you don't have to know all the practices, and you don't have to master all of the practices. If you take one practice, it is possible to go so deep in that practice that it has extraordinary benefits. It's useful to choose, I'm not going to say the right practice because it kind of implies that there's the wrong practice, but different practices have different impacts. Like if I was to choose sun salutations, for example, and just dedicate myself to those, yeah, they're awesome on certain levels, and cool shit would happen, and my body would get really strong and flexible, my nervous system would be epic, and my endocrine system would probably be great, and my ability to flow, and it's like a moving bed, all of that. And it would probably also start to naturally dissolve some conditioning, but not as much as some of the other practices. Some of the other practices, particularly the chanting practices, right? They are really focused on dissolving conditioning. So if you master those practices, your ability to allow, because really it's an allowance, is to allow conditioning to dissolve, increases. And the dissolving of conditioning simply means that the life force that animates your being just gets to like radiate and shine, and that which you truly are shines forth without all of the conditioning around safety and belonging and validation and worth and will they like me and all, right? There's just so golden column, I guess in a way that's a challenge, to some of you. I'm not suggesting you necessarily do it for 1,000 days, right? 40 days, yeah. And it can be really beneficial, this kind of practice, to sit in the morning where you can just attend to all the different things that might be buzzing around your psyche and just burn it up, get centered. Now you're ready to move into the day. Or I often do it last thing at night, right? Because then I've had the day and all the things have happened and oh my God, was I able to be fully aware so things could burn up in the fire of awareness? No, okay, practice. And then all of the things begin to burn up. And so I end my day feeling really clear. And often I have a lot of insight and inspiration come through, and I go to bed from that space, and I wake up in the morning and I feel amazing, because I've already attended to and cleared all of the things. And this really is, from my perspective, classical Tantra. It is the use of daily practice that is specifically designed to support awakening, the orientation to awareness, to support liberation, the dissolving of conditioning, and to support enjoyment of life, which totally, oh my God. So the thing about awakeness is another word for, like, orientation to awareness. Another word for awareness is the joy of being. And when there is increased ability, or I don't know if ability is the right word, just when there's more sitting in the joy of being, then life is more enjoyable, no matter what is unfolding, right? All the things become enjoyable. Oh my goodness, there's a little fly on the rim of my teacup, right? So even sipping tea is like, oh my God, the pleasure, the warmth. Like right now, my hands, I could do with a blanket. I don't have any handy in the room, and just holding this cup of tea is like, let me become intimate with the warmth. It's not super warm. It's been sitting here for about 40 minutes, but it's still got some warmth. And then there's the smell of the tea. Oh my goodness. This is a malt, I guess, coffee substitute tea. Bought at my local organic shop. I'm not really good on buying organics. I kind of suck because they are more expensive, and I still have a hang up over there. Maybe it's time to get over that. I really am just like weighing it up, and I'm like, well, you know, is it really going to benefit my health that much? Is it really worth the extra money? Because I just don't know. But what I do go to the organic store for, what I do value, because I enjoy the fuck out of it, is this tea. It's like, and it's like, I don't know, $8 for 25 bags, compared to go in the supermarket, you get, you know, $4 for 25 bags. Such small amounts of money. Why wouldn't you take the $8 tea? Okay, I'm totally digressing now and just blissing out. I haven't even had a sip yet. But do you notice what's unfolding is I've just gone completely immersed in the experience and the delight of this cup of tea. Now I'm just looking at the color. It's really silky. Like it's got, I almost want to show you, but I can't, of course. It's got milk in it, and there's a silkiness to the color of it. It's freaking amazing. Could definitely be a little warmer, but it's still, oh my God, so tasty. And this is the thing about awakening, liberation, and enjoyment of life, is that when the mind is full of all the things, the fears and the anxieties and the expectations and the assumptions and what will they think, and am I good enough, and blah, 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 blah. We're so wrapped up in that, right, that to really be with the tea is actually impossible. So genuine enjoyment of the tea is, unless, you know, maybe we can lean in and turn it into a practice and set that stuff aside. But most people are consuming all kinds of things, going through their days without really going, what a freaking miracle. What did it take for this malt tea bag to make its way to my house here in Maratoki, right? What did that take? Who grew it? Who harvested it? Who, you can see, like, oh, total immersion. Alrighty. I would ask if there's any questions, insights, reflections, but this is one of those calls where no one has come live. If you have insights, questions, reflections, you can actually put them down with this discussion on these classes, or you can join the monthly satsang and ask them then. Okay. That is the arrival practice, the golden column practice, and a dharma talk for today. We're going to now move into our next practice. Before I do, I'm actually going to split this recording into two and use this piece for YouTube. So if you've seen this on YouTube, thanks for coming and joining in on this weekly tantric class. If you enjoyed it and you want to watch more, you can come to the Tantrika's Toolbox and join up. Or not. You can just watch this one over and over and over again and just do that golden column. Okay. I'm having so much fun teaching this morning. So let's do it.